actually think the single most destructive event that a company goes through in terms of reduction of value productivity of a company is an exit, successful or failed, because it is so distracting, it is so unnerving, it is so completely disruptive to the process of running a company. And that's why it is so hard to make the decision to go forward, right? So you go from the early stage where you're talking about it and you're thinking about it, but you talked about not going through because you weren't sure if they were serious, and boy, that's the killer. Because it doesn't matter how attractive the exit is.
That's right.
If you're going to have to engage with them and push through to a final decision,
that's why you see multi-billion-dollar breakup fees. And like T-Mobile, like there's a reason why those breakup fees exist. The attorney's fee alone, it's like more money than you've ever spent on anything, right?
But think about it, the deal falls apart, and suddenly you've got a bunch of employees who may have heard something's going on.
They're all get optimistic.
Right, and then they didn't even know what was happening. All they know is whatever was going to happen that we wanted is now not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And the more they know, the worse it is, right? Like they were excited because they were going to cash in their options, and that's going away. They knew who the company was. Clearly, that company doesn't like us anymore. Whatever that is, it's just so crucial. It's one of the hardest things to get right. It's almost easier just to go build to an IPO.
There's just too many things that have to line up.
That's right.
For an exit to happen. Yeah. And there are lots of them.
It's
right?
not to say that it's impossible to influence.
That's right. I mean, of course, the work influences it, and the work to create those opportunities. But there's so many that have to line up. Whether it be the guy who wants to buy it, and the time they want to buy it, and the price they want to pay for it, and the entrepreneur that wants to sell it, and the investors who will support the entrepreneur to sell it. Like, all of those things have to line up. And the likelihood of them lining up is relatively small. Even if the business is perfect and the company really should buy that thing.
I've heard it described as you have to be open to being lucky.
Or be prepared to be lucky.
Prepared to be lucky.
Yeah.
They tell this about Steve Jobs, or you can tell me who it was, but they tell the story, he gets 100 resumes, he grabs 5 and tells his assistant, get rid of the rest. He says, well, how do you know, right? There's 95 that could be amazing. He says, no, I need the lucky ones. And these 5, they're the lucky ones.
I've heard of the argument, which is the entrepreneur should be good, luck doesn't matter. And I'm like, so you think we chose to be born in this time? You think we chose to be born and live in this country at this moment in time because we were good? Like, let's start there. And they talk about in Outliers, the 10,000 hours and the time that you were born, and how Gates and Jobs and that generation was born at that specific time, and they had access to things, and they had access to technology that most people won't. And we won't discover for another 10 years what we have access to that would transform the world, right?
That's right.
Probably mobile is one, there's a few other things.
Social.
Yeah. And that is a floor against the argument of, are you lucky or are you good? And you're always more lucky than you are good.
I actually think that the kind of luck startups need is in large part the kind that you can select for. And the job of the CEO is basically the chief serendipity officer. The CEO is the one who goes to conferences. The CEO is the one who shakes hands. The CEO is the one who's got to have their finger to the wind, both to find those opportunities and to triage them. Because you guys know, opportunities or shadows of opportunities come across your way constantly. Right? Somebody mentions that they're thinking about something related. You have to do this quick, like, yeah, okay, so I'm going to have a conversation. Okay, so it's interesting. Do I have a follow-up meeting? Okay, so the meeting was interesting. Are we going to pivot our company a little or a lot to go look at this opportunity? And that a large part of what the CEO does is look for those kind of discontinuities in the company's strategy and existence that can propel it forward, while paradoxically, at the same time, being the stable hand on the rudder, the bearer of the torch that keeps the company moving towards its strategy at all times. And the great CEOs, I think, are the ones who master that balance.
And I would add to that too, like most of the investments that I've made where it's done well, that's, Ben, you, and so forth, I would say there's one factor that's kind of similar, is that you're very, very good in terms of building a network. And that's the part where a lot of times I'll meet with a young entrepreneur and they're like, hey, look at this exit, they sold for 200 million. This one sold for 300 million. Therefore, I should be worth 50 million or 75 million. I'm like, dude, do you know how long these guys cultivated those relationships? Like, maybe this guy worked for that guy for 10 years, Spazzato, or whoever, like they've built these relationships over years, and serendipity happens when you've built those relationships. That's what I appreciate about TA is, like, he's talked about this in his talks, is like, it's all about relationships, it's about the emotional sell, it's about the confidence that you've exuded with the people that you know. The other piece that it seems to be huge for success has always been your ability to kind of handle the difficult times, because at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of people just give up too fast and they don't allow serendipity to happen. Right. So, you know, when I do talk to entrepreneurs, I'm like, dude, make sure you can give 2 years, because I would say you throw away the first year. You know, the first year it's just out the window. It's so freaking, I don't even know what I'm doing, you know? Like get that under your belt, and then, you know, you're actually working on your business for a year, and then you can reevaluate. But you know, there's just story after story, like including NetConversions, when we went through and we brought it all the way down to $200 into the bank, you know? Like we took it from there and all the way to an exit. But I stuck with it. And I think the right entrepreneurs will stick with it.
Like when you think about what does the buyer want,
Yeah.
and whether you're selling or not, or whether you're just saying like, this is what I'm trying to do. Like if that's what you want, then I'm your guy. But actually, I'm just telling you what I want to do with this business. And the likelihood of those two things kind of aligning, sometimes they want the code, and sometimes they want the engineers, and sometimes they want the vision. Like, what I really want is buy a guy who knows where the hell this market's going, and somebody I can hire to go and take us there. And like, you don't know that going in, and all you are is what you are. Yeah. And especially if you're not trying to sell the business, which I think the best exit, you're not trying to sell.
Yeah. You're trying to get
you're
by.
Like, yeah. I'm just trying to do what I want to do, and if you want to buy that, then that's great, but I'm going to go do what I'm going to do, independent of whether you want to buy it or not.
I think you two mentioned something which is interesting. Like you talked about having a great network, cultivating these relationships. I remember like right out of college, like starting my first company and learning how to network. And then it was about networking. And then at some point it was so hard I gave up. And then that's when it started working. That's when I started building relationships, because it wasn't about, I'd like to get to know you as a professional. It was like, hey guys, let's go have a beer. Right? And it was like this magical moment where like it became really easy and fun to make friends. And then it turned out that they like do something interesting.
But I think all the best CEO founders have this kind of multiple personality disorder nature to them, where they can be completely and totally focused on building their business, but also thinking about the kind of value they're building and what kind of companies would like to buy. Where they can be totally and completely focused on leading the company to the current strategy, but also considering all the different pivots and opportunities that are ahead of them. And it's exhausting. Somebody told me this great metaphor. Executives at a big company, and even at medium and small companies, even at startups, are like a giant wheel with 1,000 teeth. And the people who are actually getting the work done are like this little tiny gear with 5 teeth. And a very small turn in the direction, you know, I think we should really be thinking about our cloud strategy. Right. Sends that little gear spinning at, you know, 500 RPMs. And it's a really delicate dance to control, setting the strategy, sticking the course, and then occasionally pivoting and injecting new information while not making everybody feel like it's just unmitigated chaos. Big companies are small.
Yeah, network and luck. Yep. You know, people have told me about how the internet makes everything meritocratic and it's not about who you know, and I'm like, bullshit. Bullshit. It will always be about who you know. It's just that the access to the club is more meritocratic.
Well, then it's who you know and what you know and how you turn that into a relationship.
Yeah, that's right. It's about the people. You can't remove the people from the equation, at least not yet. Unless machines are starting to do corp dev.
I will say that I actually recommend most people don't become entrepreneurs. I just think it is freaking hard. And as soon as you imagine being an entrepreneur, I think you should multiply it by 10 how hard it is. And if you can survive that sort of pain, then maybe give it a shot. I will say that I actually recommend most people don't become entrepreneurs. I just think it is freaking hard. And as soon as you imagine being an entrepreneur, I think you should multiply it by 10 how hard it is. And if you can survive that sort of pain, then maybe give it a shot.